What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you guys through the third installment into our kind of pricing, underpriced analysis. And this video is going to focus on the midfielders. So I've already covered the defenders and the forwards. Go check those videos out if you guys haven't. Great videos, great insights in my opinion, but you guys might disagree or agree with me. But it seems like the majority of you guys are really enjoying this series, so I'm going to continue it. And tomorrow we'll cover the goalkeepers to make sure those bell notifications are on so you don't miss that video. But a few surprises are to be had in terms of the underpriced midfielders, some controversy. I'm pretty sure there might be those of you in the comments saying, why isn't this option here? But don't worry, if they're not in this video, I'll cover them in my overpriced midfielder video. So a few nice insights are going to be gauged here, a few nice underrated options will be uncovered. So sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. Now before we get on to the actual video, as always, I'm going to give you guys some insight into how I created this video, how I chose the sample of players to look at, and how I determined if they're over or underpriced. Well, the data we used in this video is going to be the points and the prices, but the big difference between these two kind of data points is that they're from different seasons. So the points is going to come from last season, and the prices will be from the current season, as the prices are based on last year's points. Now yes, there might be situations where FPL looks at kind of a 4-season or 5-season run, but I generally think the majority of prices are based on last season. Now I simply didn't select every midfielder in the game, I went over kind of a filter, and that filter was going to be the midfielders have to score more than 60 points. So I arrived at that number. I just considered the fact that if they played 30 minutes, 2 appearance points per 30 games is 60 points, and if they were signed in January, that's half a season, and if they got a few attacking returns, a few clean sheets, that should take them over that 60-point mark. Now finally, the way I kind of determined if they're under or overpriced was I sketched the regression line over the sample of plus 60-point midfielders, and if they were equal or above that line, they were going to be considered underpriced. So a very quick kind of review, but I did go over this in depth in the defender review video. But if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments down below. But now let's get on to the actual team, and you guys are going to see the graph on screen right now is going to compare the points on the y-axis to the prices on the x-axis, and there's going to be a few omissions that could be quite controversial. So the biggest kind of omission is probably going to be a certain 12.5 midfielder, so you guys know that Mo Salah is therefore overpriced, but there are a few options that we can also look at that provide better value. Now don't worry, I'm not saying that Mo Salah is the worst option to get, that you guys shouldn't pick him, but I will cover that in the overpriced video. So let's focus on the top right hand side. That's going to be where your eyes are probably at the moment. We've got a nice cluster of options from Arsenal and then also United. So Odegaard, Saka and Martinelli are nice penciled in there. I think the Martinelli might be a nice little gem there at 8.0 million, 0.5 cheaper than Odegaard and Saka, but he did score slightly less points. The big thing is going to be Odegaard versus Saka. You guys can see that Odegaard had the better season, but the expected stats do look pretty similar between Odegaard and Saka last season. So which Arsenal midfielder do you guys currently have? I know in my own team I've got Saka, but Odegaard or Martinelli might find their way into my squad come that game week 1 deadline. Then obviously we got that Rashford and Fernandes debate, that 50-50 call according to most managers. I personally do prefer going for Rashford. I know Fernandes had massive stats last season, but I generally think that Rashford is slightly more attacking. He is 0.5 more expensive though, but I think he's worth it at the end of the day, and you guys can let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you team Bruno or team Rashford, or are you team both? Now going slightly down that regression line, we can see Phil Foden just snuck in at 7.5 million. So yes, out of the 7.5 midfielders, even though he had the reduced amount of time, he's still going to be as a Man City midfielder. Now you guys know in my first draft, I had Phil Foden, but I do consider him to be more of a streaky player, so I won't own him for the entire season. Then we have Trossard and Bowen. Now Trossard might kind of disrupt that Arsenal front line. Whose spot is he going to take? Is it going to be Martinelli? Is it going to be Saka? Or is it going to be Jesus? No one knows at the current moment, but I'm keeping my eye on the preseason. Then Jared Bowen, always kind of underrated as an option, didn't have the best last season, but I guess he can replicate 2 seasons ago where he had a great FPL season. Other than that though, we've got kind of the Brighton midfielders. We've got Gross at the top at that 6.5 bracket, March and Matoma up next. I do think Solly March is going slightly under the radar. Everyone has Matoma at the moment, but I do think Solly March could be an underrated pick. Then going kind of down the radar, there's going to be these cheaper midfielders that I haven't seen in many people's drafts. You guys know I mentioned Douglas Luiz in my best draft video. There's a lot of controversy there. Why is he an option? But you guys can see he had a very good season at 5.5 million. There's not too many options that I would kind of recommend though from that kind of a 6 million down. I know Elise could be a nice punt, but I'd probably go for Eze rather. And then a Gibbs White or McAllister could be outside punts. But definitely from that 6.5 million range up are going to be assets to look at, and I generally think everyone owns a Saka or an Odegaard and one of Rashford or Bruno. Let me know how many midfielders you guys currently own in your team. I own a Saka, I own a Rashford, and I own a Foden, so let's go for 3 and I'm looking to bring in a Bruno into my squad. So I guess you could say that my midfielders are going to be underpriced, but I generally think that's what FPL's done this season. I mean, just look at that kind of top cluster. I think they've got all those prices probably wrong. Probably would have gone for Saka at 9 million. I think Rashford might be fine, but Bruno at 8.5 would have been better at 9 million in my opinion. You guys can in the comments down below, do you believe that we've got these options at such a cheap price point? Does that mean they're too good to ignore? And should we try and get as many of these options into midfield as possible? Now let's go over the top 5 most underpriced midfielders. This is going to be the distance from their points to the regression line. The bigger the distance, the bigger the pricing mistake from FPL. So let's go over the top 5. So the 5th place is going to be Gross from Brighton. Those Brighton mids provide very good value for money. Obviously out of them had the best Premier League season, and that's what cemented him at that 5th spot. Next up though is going to be Saka, so the first of our Arsenal mids. Because of the 8.5 million price tag and because he was slightly on par with Martinelli, he has a weaker underpriced rating. Then the player that everyone was kind of asking me why I have him in my draft, but just remember that wasn't the draft I picked, that was the draft that Matt's picked, and that was going to be Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. At his cheaper price point, if he continues the form of last season, could be a great shout at that cheaper price point. Now the second of our Arsenal mids, you just see that Arsenal are kind of underpriced a lot here. We've got Martinelli at 8.0 million. So the big question mark I guess about Martinelli is he was the most likely to be subbed for Trossard towards the end of last season, but still a great shout if he plays the majority of minutes. Now the Brazilian international had a great form this season, but can he continue it into this season? Now number 1 most underpriced option, you guys have guessed it, it's going to be Odegaard from Arsenal. The Norwegian has been kind of underpriced by FPL in my opinion, but can he continue the form of last season even though his stats in terms of XG, XA, he was massively overperforming them? I can probably say with great certainty that I'm going to pick at least one of these options. It's probably going to be Saka, but I could incorporate Odegaard or Martinelli as well. Let me know in the comments down below, how many of the top 5 do you guys own? I guess you could kind of substitute Matoma or March for Gross. I expect them to have a better FPL season overall, but as mentioned, that top cluster is going to be where the points lie. Now the last talking point I want to go over, just a reminder that please don't just use the first graph, use this graph on screen right now. It's going to be points per 90 minutes. So the number 1 player I want to talk about here is going to be Phil Foden. Every single season or preseason we say this, the Man City mids score points if they play. Nothing can be truer with Foden. We saw this last season, he managed to sneak in as underpriced at 7.5 million even though he wasn't playing the majority of minutes. But if he does play, he gets you FPL points, and that's why out of all the midfielders had the best points per 90 minutes ratio. So should you guys take a punt on him? I do think so, especially if De Bruyne is going to be missing from action. With Gundogan out of the club, Foden should get a spot in the starting 11. Nice to see some other premium kind of midfielders, Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, expect them to be up top with that more expensive price tag. Then we obviously have Rashford, and if you guys do cast your eyes towards the bottom of the screen, you'll see Bruno Fernandes. Rashford just scored more points when he did play. Also interesting enough, if you guys do want to go for Diego Jota from Liverpool, he's now being classified as a midfielder, and when he does also start, he gets you FPL points. We then have the rest of the kind of Arsenal midfielders. We've got Martinelli, Trossard, Odegaard. Interestingly enough, all 3 of those do outperform Saka on a points per 90 minutes ratio. Other than that though, kind of expected, maybe an Eze is a nice little differential at a cheaper price point if you guys do want to go there. However, he is on ratio with kind of a Matoma, so out of those 2, I'd probably prefer Matoma, as I like that Brighton team. Also a bit of a difference between Matoma and Solly March at the bottom of the ratio, where Maddison also lies. But don't worry, I'll be going over this in a lot more depth in the upcoming videos. I just want to give you guys a taste and a reminder of what stat to also look at. But this is basically a wrap for the video, guys. Hope you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you did and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. I'll be seeing you guys for loads more content coming up during this preseason, so make sure those bell notifications are turned on. Otherwise, thanks to all the new legend and also members. Thank you for supporting the channel. But I'm signing off. This has been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.